Hey guys, this will be the sociology lecture on culture. We hear the word culture thrown around a lot, but a lot of times we don't really think about what it means, and it means a lot. It's not simplistic. It encompasses so many things. It involves our knowledge, involves our beliefs, our values, our material objects, our language, our customs, norms, all these different things. And it's things that we learn and that are passed down from one generation to the next. So that's how we're able to learn. That's how we're able to function, is because of culture. If we didn't have culture, forget we wouldn't be a functioning entity in any way, shape, or form. And with each culture, you have society. So, it's society. It's defined as a group of people that live together in a certain territory. So you have all of these different, societies like American society or German society, Chinese society. So you have a lot of societies around the world, and each one has their own culture and different forms of culture within that one society. And with culture, it's so interesting because you can study basically anything and everything with it. There's really no limits to it. So that's one reason why I like it. And I'm going to talk about a few pairs of cultures. So, first one are material and non material culture. And it's basically just what they say. Material culture are tangible items that we create. So, like for instance, this pen, it's a type of material culture. My glasses I have on, material culture. The MacBook I'm using right now, my cell phone, they're all types of material culture. It's these things that we make. And then you have non-material culture, which is our thoughts, feelings, our beliefs, our values. They're abstract. They're not something we can visually see, whereas material culture is. You think about our country, we're very materialistic. So I feel like we're much more material culture oriented. Just like we always have people, not all people, but a lot of people have to have the very best. So, like, I have, the iPhone 11 Pro Max. Do I need that? No. Before I had the 8 Plus, and then I upgraded to this once I was able to. But pretty soon, the 12 or however they're going to name it will be out. So, but we see people that are just obsessed with that type of thing. Sometimes I have to pull my own self back and remind myself that, hey, you don't need that. It's not necessary. So I'm not as materialistic, but I have my moments just like everybody else. And, I hope that one day the U.S. changes, but it's going to be hard to, because consumerism has really and capitalism have taken complete hold of this country. So we're very materialistic. And then we have two things where people often combine the two as one thing or think of them as the same thing: beliefs and values. Beliefs, when it comes down to it, they're opinions. Some people can have very, very strong beliefs, and they can believe it, and they can have total belief, what's the word I'm looking for? For some reason, I can't think of the word I'm trying to use here. Basically, some people can be all in on their beliefs, but again, it's just opinions. Whereas values, they're much deeper than that. Their thoughts about what is good and bad, what is right and wrong, what is desirable or undesirable. So beliefs and values are not the same thing. It may not seem like that big of a deal, but it is. It's these little things that people should know, and that a lot of people don't really pay attention to that they should. And we talk about values. There's a lot of them that we have in this country. Individualism, where we're very materialistic. We're also very much a individualistic culture as well. We usually go for individual over groups, whereas places like Asia are much more group oriented versus us. Also, big focus on achievement, success, wanting to be the best, wanting to achieve, get to the highest levels. A lot of times, putting too much focus on that. Also, a focus on material comfort, which I've mentioned already. Efficiency, So a lot of people, when they go to a drive-through, if they have to wait more than a few minutes, they get very aggravated and think the service is terrible. Some drive-throughs are super quick, some are slower, some are just average. But efficiency is something we really want. I think about sometimes whenever I use the internet and it's taking something a little bit longer to load, and I get frustrated. But then I had to remind myself, because most of you guys probably have no idea what dial-up internet is, or at least if you do, you never had to use it. I remind myself, dial-up is a lot worse. So while it might not always be the most efficient, it's okay. Everything doesn't have to be so efficient. But unfortunately, that's something that we put too much emphasis on at times in this country. And because of that desire for efficiency, it also speeds up our culture, it speeds up our day. And sometimes I feel like we just need to take a step back, and that would really help. But also equality, and that's something that's really big right now, with as far as racial and ethnic inequality, as far as desire for that equality. Black Lives Matter. Also, you think about it as far as like gender goes, as far as females and trying to get equality on the same par as males. And there's so many other types of equality, but that's another American value. Also, freedom and liberty. And then also ethnocentrism and group superiority. And it's really weird, and I'll get to ethnocentrism here towards the end of this lecture, but when it comes to group superiority, it's weird seeing that on there, because we also have equality. But yet, when you have the term group superiority, obviously one group or certain groups are much more benefited than others. They have a lot more than others, whether it be status, whether it be money, whether it be power, whatever it might be. We see these groups, and we've seen groups throughout this country not only have this power but also keep it. So it's really interesting to me that we have both equality and group superiority as far as a value, because it's very contradictory. But that just shows that how not everybody in this country agrees. Some people value one of those and some people value the other. Some people may at times value one or the other depending on how it could benefit them. So those are just some values for American culture. Something else I want to mention is language, and that's just the symbols that we use to communicate with other people. Obviously ours is the alphabet. When it comes to other countries, obviously they don't necessarily have, they don't have the same alphabet as us. It's a lot different. If you were to go to Japan or China, completely different. We would literally call them symbols, whereas here we just use letters to make words. But these things help us share. With language, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to function, because not just because we couldn't communicate with each other, but we wouldn't know a history. We wouldn't be able to, contribute ideas and try to improve things, or hopefully try to improve things. It wouldn't allow us to exchange perspectives with each other, as far as about our experiences that we've had. So language is very important. We don't think about it, we take it for granted, but it's something that we need to realize that it's very unique and very important to everything we do. When it comes to language, language is passed down through the written form. Now, obviously, like right now, I'm talking to you guys whenever it comes to verbal, and a lot of things are passed down verbally, but if we didn't have written language, then we wouldn't have our history. We wouldn't learn about history. We wouldn't be able to record things. We wouldn't be able to pull things up and use them whenever we needed them. So just remember, language is passed down through the written form. Not the spoken form, but the written form. Let's see here. Next thing I'm going to talk about is norms. And norms are just rules for expected behavior, or how we're supposed to act. So it can be anything from being, from knowing that when we go out in public, we have to dress appropriately, we have to wear clothes and be clothed, to looking somebody in the eye whenever you're speaking to them, or shaking hands whenever you meet somebody, or well, before COVID, that was something that was important. Now it's at least for the time being, that's kind of on the back burner, not as important. But anyways, you get the idea. Norms can be very, very simple, and depending on the person you ask, they'll say there are 3 or 4 types of norms. Technically, there are 4 types. You have folkways, and they're informal or everyday norms. So, like I said, having eye contact with somebody, at least in this country, is important. That would be a folkway. Or holding the door open for somebody would be a folkway. When somebody acknowledges you walking by them, you would acknowledge them back. So it's just these general everyday norms where, if you were to break one, it's not really a big deal. It might be thought of as maybe rude, but it's not thought of as a big deal. It's not going to carry a consequence or a sanction. Then we have mores, and these are norms that have very high moral significance, hence why they're called mores. It looks like it's mores, but it's mores. They have a very strong ethical thought and guidance with them. And, if they're violated, it's something that would carry a big consequence. And then you have taboos, which are a type of moray. And with taboos, there are mores that are so strong that when their violation happens, it's considered unspeakable or extremely offensive. Just like, in certain countries, you do not deal with leather. Cows are considered sacred. They're untouchable. So like if you were somebody that had a leather purse or a leather jacket in that country, that'd be taboo. Also, something else that's taboo, at least in this country, you don't marry your first cousin. It's generally thought of. What's interesting about that, and kind of odd, depending on how you want to take it, about half, I think it's almost exactly half the states allow first cousin marriage. They allow you to marry your first cousin. Most of them that allow it do so without restrictions, but there are some states like Indiana that have a restriction on it. In Indiana, I think it's age 70. If you reach age 70, you can marry your first cousin at that point. I really don't know what the rationale behind that is. I'm assuming it's at the point where, you've made it that old in life, you're that age, so you can do whatever you want. I don't know. That's just what I gather from it, but again, I don't really know the specifics behind it. So, some states you can't marry your first cousin. Kentucky is not one of them. Kentucky may get a bad rap for a lot of things, but we are not legally allowed to marry first cousins. So you've got norms. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video right here before I go over the YouTube time limit, and then I'm going to cover just a few other things in another video for you guys.